This one's.
Welcome to the Man Up God's Way podcast, a show that dives into the real, raw, and relevant issues for men and their faith, life, and community. Now, your host, Jody Burkeen.
And here we are again on another Monday night. My name is Jody Burkeen. I am the founder of Man Up God's Way and your host for the Man Up Monday podcast. We want to welcome you, and we ask that if you will take a moment just to share this feed with everybody on your social media, we would love that. We would want everybody to hear this podcast tonight and all the other ones. This is episode 31 for 2022. We're really excited about that. I've got some guests here. I've got my host, both my hosts here today, and we'll introduce our guest here in just a minute. And again, excited that you're here. Real quick, we just want you to know that how we pay for this podcast is through our manupmerch.com. We have cool t-shirts like this really cool t-shirt that I have here. It says "Man Up or Shut Up." And I'll explain that a little later, but this is one of my favorite shirts. I like to wear it. It almost gets me in fights when I walk down the street because I have guys look at me twice when I've got it on. Also, we've got our Man Up coffee blend. Okay, again, manupmerch.com will get you there to help us pay for this podcast. We want you to partner with us. The ministry has been around for 10 years now, and we continue to grow. We've got over 875,000 followers on Facebook. We've got a private group that has 50,000 men in it now, continues to grow. And then we've got our app. We really want you to get involved with our app. And I'm going to let Fregosa tell you a little bit about our app. Fregosa is our production manager.
So the app is really just a way for you to back us, for you to step in and show us a little bit of monetary support. There is a cost to it, but it really is a substitute for social media. So it's going to operate a lot like Facebook. It looks a lot like any other social media app you would have. There's going to be Bible studies on there that will be exclusive to that community. There's also a great feature of a prayer wall. It's just a good space to have communion with other individuals who are followers of Christ. You know, there's been, I've had some great conversations with guys who are, seeking out advice and help and, just being vulnerable with their struggles, things that you wouldn't necessarily share on Facebook or might not feel comfortable sharing on Facebook. You feel a little bit safer sharing it in the confines of a group of men. So that's what it's all about. Back to you.
Amen. I love it. Nice job, Fregosa. My co-host here, Mr. Ben Neely. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. You?
I can't complain.
Another Monday night.
Another Monday night. Here. Yeah, last week was kind of funky because we had to do Wednesday night because I had some stuff going on Monday night, and it seemed really quick. All of a sudden, here we are back in the podcast.
Yeah,
So,
it was a quick turnaround.
Did you have a good weekend?
I did.
Did you?
I had a great weekend.
Awesome.
It was good stuff.
What'd you do? Did you close the pool up yet?
Saturday, I did the devotion at our men's breakfast. That was good.
You killed
on
that,
humility.
Yeah, you
something
killed
I've
that.
struggled with all my life.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but
yeah, he started off this talk about humility, and he said, "I'll be speaking today on humility. I'm really proud of what I wrote."
I walked up and, it's real quiet, getting ready for me to speak. And I said, guys, I want to tell you my devotion this morning is about humility. And I got to tell you, I'm pretty proud of it, just to break the ice.
That sounds hilarious.
And then Sunday, I listened to a so-so sermon by a so-so pastor at a so-so church. And
all I did was read scripture. That's all I did.
Then I just relaxed, getting ready for my I told you earlier I changed my hours at work, so I'm going in at 8 instead of 7. So I just cannot get up and run at 4:15 in the morning. So now I can get out by 5, be done by 6:30, and still get to work, by 8.
Our guests will be interested in that because we started and we'll introduce our guest here in just a second, but we started like a Biggest Loser challenge at the beginning of the year, and it's just been kind of this ebb and flow of up and downs. And Ben has lost how many pounds? 35?
I've lost 46 altogether.
46 altogether, okay.
But 29 since the contest
Right.
started. Because
Okay.
I was
You
I
started
was already
yeah,
down
exactly.
16.
Yeah. So I was down to 213 this morning from 221.
No, you weren't.
I was this morning, I
After
swear.
COVID, you were down to 209.
Well, I know. So I
Okay.
gained 4 pounds at family camp, but I know. But I'm going down I'm getting down to 200 and get back to my fighting weight. So that's the goals.
So
But,
another guest on the podcast today that's gonna.
yeah,
Man, I can't stand good-looking people that are in shape.
it's going.
I just can't stand it.
He's going to challenge it. Well, that give us a goal, man. Here we go. So, again, I'm really excited tonight. We've got a special guest here tonight. He is the founder of the School of Man, and his name is Cole Rogers. Cole, welcome to the show, man.
Guys, I'm extremely grateful for being here, and I'm just sitting and listening, and I can tell you the main reason why I'm grateful is that you're filling my heart full of laughter, and I think that if more people would experience laughter every single day, this world would be just an incredible place. And it is an incredible place because we make it an incredible place. Men like yourself, men, like myself, men that are just putting out good in the world. I love it. And the humility and pride comment, I mean, that's just golden. Just absolutely. That's just golden.
He got a good He got a really good laugh out of it.
I bet.
Cole, my testimony is one of comes from a really bad place, and so I felt the need to break the ice before I got into the first, say, 25, 30 years of my life.
Sorry about that. We got a little bit
you're
feedback there. That's my bad. Stupid phone. So Cole, man, again, like I said, we're excited about having you on here. I was reading your bio and all the things that you've got going on, and why don't you just start off and tell us your story?
Sure.
Your testimony, how you got to where you are today, how School of Man started, and what prompted you to start it. And you can start as far back as you want, or however you want. I always tell men as I'm discipling them to have a 2-minute, a 10-minute, and a 45-minute version of their testimony.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the opportunity to honestly dive into it, because every time I tell my story, just like anybody that's listening, just like you men that are there, your pain is converted into your promise. I mean, you think about it, the man that changed the world forever for greater good is Christ, right? And there was a time that I did not have a relationship with Christ, and I'll get into that. But our story, it is something that is constantly evolving. It is something that everything in our life happens for us, not to us. And I just choose to look at life along the way. That's how I look at everything, is that everything in my life up to this point has happened for me and not to me, to forge me into the man that I am and the man that I'm chasing. I don't ever live in the past, all right? It's not a place to live in. It's a place that we can use to extract the wisdom and the gold that is out there. But before I ever launch in my story on any podcast that I do, every morning at Psalm, I always go through our ethos. This is an ethos that was created. It's like our Declaration of Independence, our Constitution. We created it 5 years ago when I founded Psalm, and I didn't just established Psalm out of a business plan. It actually came from
Psalm is School of Men, just so people know. Psalm is School of Man.
Sorry. Yeah. So School of Man for everybody is also known as Psalm. We call it Psalm.
Got it.
But here's the ethos, and this will be really a jumping off point, because this ethos was crafted from all the trials, the tribulations, and the obstacles that were in the way that I have been through, and thank God I've been through them. But here we go. As a man, I will treat every day as it is my last. I will take on the everyday responsibilities as a man with a warrior mentality. I will not exist. I will live. I'm loyal to God, myself, my family, my brothers, and my wife, and I will give my all to bettering myself daily. I'm to be the man that Ashley dreams about at night but gets to wake up to in the morning. I'm to be the hero and the father that Ava and Landon need, and the man they deserve me to be. I'm a fierce and special breed of brother to my team. I'm never backing down as life throws its spears at me. Instead, I view the spears as an opportunity opportunity to grow and help others with. I have found my why. I'm grounded in my purpose. I'm not lighthearted. I'm lion-hearted. I'm secure enough to show the world my flaws, but fierce enough to attack them head on. And I will make a mistake as a man, but I'll own that mistake and suffer the consequences like I should. I have integrity in every aspect of my life and the humility to not boast about it. I know who I am, and I'm in control of where my life is taking me. I've earned my team's ethos, and I push towards earning it every single day, and I'm actively conquering my core 5 while helping others do the same. I'm a leader, whether it be to one or many I'm called to lead. I've learned to hold others lovingly accountable like a true leader would. My spirit is unshakable. My mind is unbreakable. When you look inside my soul, you'll see a warrior phoenix, one with fire in his eyes and ashes dripping from my wings of rebirth, because I'm reborn daily due to the 1-second contract I've signed and on. I'm always pushing forward. I'm never looking back. I take my why, my leadership ability, and my experiences, and I help other men be free the way I am. God has blessed me with gifts I will never use for selfish gain. Instead, I will use them to help this world understand. By helping one, I can help change the world one life at a time. That ethos is an extremely important part of my soul, and it's a very important part of the School of Man soul. And how the story goes with me, and like you said, you can have a 2-minute, 10-minute, 45-minute. I've told them
Right.
all.
Well, we could wrap it up after that, Eastos. That was solid. That's the show, folks. Thanks for coming out. That's all we got for you today. Ponder on that.
That is deep. I like that. That's good.
Yeah, but you know what, man, you guys, so many men do not have an ethos.
Right.
They just do not have anything that they don't have anything they stand for or a shoreline. And it's not like I just woke up one day and I just said, hey, I'm just going to write this ethos.
Right.
Absolutely not. Every time I said, every day that I go into prayer, I say that to myself. And every day in front of the men at headquarters at School of Man, I say it in front of them,
right.
or one of my teachers does, etc. But here's how here's how it really got its life, if you will. My wife and I have been married for close to 11 years. Ashley, God knew what He was doing when I found her on eHarmony. It's funny how God works. Yep. So I met her on eHarmony, and it was back when eHarmony was first kind of getting its thing going. And I was like, right. I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it because I want to date. But I was living in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, working 70 hours a week, and just like, hey, I'm tired of being in the bars, and I just want to actually have a conversation. So I go on eHarmony and talk about humility. I put a picture of myself with 2 girls on it. Well, I didn't realize it. I just thought that, hey, I look good in it, so I'm going to be able to attract them. The 2 girls were my sister and my cousin, and we were at a party that I took a picture of. But my lack of humility only looked at like, hey, man, I look really good in this picture. Well, anyway, long and the short on that end is that Ashley ended up going on a date. Well, one of the guys I was working with in Raleigh, North Carolina, actually knew her really well. So it was weird how that worked. It's like, okay, I'm going on this date with this girl by the name of Ashley Walker. And he's like, Ashley Walker, his name's Josh. And he goes, I know Ashley Walker. And it was like, oh my God, such a small world. I should have just asked you, brother, just to hook me up instead of me going on eHarmony.
That's crazy.
That is real crazy. But that's where the relationship formed. And I always told myself, if I was to bring a girl across, like back home, because I'm from Central Arkansas, and I'd moved off to Nashville, Tennessee, and into Raleigh, Durham, that if I were to bring a girl home, that it would be the one. She would be the one, because I'm doing this one time. And if I'm going to introduce her to my mother and my grandmother, she'll be the one. And that's just, that's just the way my mind works and operates. And sure enough, she was the one. What she didn't know were the shadow sides that I brought into our relationship. Mm-hmm. I was 27, 28. And when I left Conway, Arkansas, Central Arkansas, all I cared about were really 3 things that we as men have been taught to benchmark ourselves on since boys: sex, money, and athletics. Those were the 3 things that I really cared about. And at 18, I was saving myself for marriage, but I ended up losing my virginity to my girlfriend at the time. And she felt guilty. I felt guilty. Well, she held it over my head. And at the end of the day, it created this scar, and I put a callus on my heart.
Oh, man.
And, I remember vividly, we would always get a Christmas tree, a real Christmas tree. We still do. My mom loves real Christmas tree. And I was sitting in my 94 short bed Chevy with my father, and he and I never really had the talk or a conversation. I just saw my cousin get his girlfriend pregnant, and I didn't want to follow suit. So saving myself was something that was very special, even with locker room talk going on. Because I was big into sports in the school, in the high school, etc. But I just sat there and for the first time broke down and cried, like almost snot bubbles coming out of my nose. It was one of the very first times that I remember being ultraly vulnerable, like just 100% pure, like when I was a child, meaning like 100% pure liberation. I needed to get off my chest. My dad was there to console me and love me. He didn't grow up with a father, so he did the best he could. All he knew, and he's my hero to this day, was to work. That's basically what he knew.
Right.
He never missed a ball game, but that's what he knew. So he consoled me. He loved on me. Sophomore year of my high school career, I was bullied. Got the crap kicked out of me on the bus, starting point guard type of deal, and that was another vulnerable moment for me. So all these calluses started developing around my heart in regards to relationships. I go to Nashville, I get a job, and it's in a sales role. All I knew was like, hey, I'm not going to have another girlfriend. I'm going to stay single. I will not let anybody get close to me. And this is me getting further and further away from God and Christ. And in college, that's when Adderall was introduced to my world. And Adderall was used really to cram for tests the night before in the library, then was used at parties. And I brought that habit with me.
Right.
And not thinking anything of it, because you become your proximity. You become who you surround yourself, which we've all heard. Your network equals your net worth. Well, over the course of 6 years, that Adderall turned into cocaine from time to time. And I embodied the mantra, the ethos of, hey, if you hang out with the Owls at night, you soar with the Eagles in the morning. And I could produce with the best of them, sell with the best of them, number one producer, number one sales rep. Money started to come in. It was one of those things that I had to humble myself more than once, and just so I would stay grounded. And I would never keep a relationship for more than 90 days. So when I met Ashley, she of course doesn't know any of that, because we all like to put these masks on throughout our life as men, right? And those were the masks that I was wearing. I was basically extreme alpha, still benchmarking if we were having sex or intimacy, hey, things were good. I moved out of Raleigh to start a business in Central Arkansas. My income was cut in half, but you know what? I've got to grind. It's grind season, homie. She comes long distance with me. And eventually, though, we ended up getting married. Well, that is when the wheels started to somewhat shake on the car.
Yeah, when you're together a lot more than just dating on the weekends and stuff, all of a sudden you can't hide it anymore.
Yeah, and when you don't have God or Christ in your life, it becomes very evident.
Right.
So
it was interesting, the 90-day comment that he made, because I always tell younger, teenage girls, the first 90 days you're meeting somebody's representative. You're meeting the person that he wants you to think that they are.
Right.
That's funny. And that's why probably so many relationships that end after 90 days, because after about 90 days, you got to start being, they start to see who you really are, real. Right?
Yeah,
and the mask isn't working anymore.
Right, exactly. You're exactly right.
Yeah. Representative.
That's good.
That's good. That's real good. And that's exactly what I was for more than 90 days with Ashley. And when I moved to Central Arkansas, and this is... I blew out my Achilles playing basketball. Well, I had to have my mom drive me around so I could cold call on businesses, and I would crutch up and I would deliver them cookies and meet with the business owner or the business office or whoever it might be, right? Because time was ticking. And when I blew my Achilles, all I knew what to do was obsess over like one thing. It's like, hey, I'm getting married. I have to create this business. I am not going to fail. No, that's my mentality.
Right.
And Ashley eventually ends up moving from Raleigh to Central Arkansas.
Now, what?
And-
Sorry to interrupt you. What were you selling? I'm a sales guy. I always want to know what the business.
Yeah. So my business is on the employee benefits side of insurance.
That's insurance. Okay.
Yep. And working with larger employers. And so and this was new for me. Like I came from an insurance carrier like a Blue Cross Blue Shield to starting my own business, my own agency, etc. And this was new, exciting adventure. And we ended up getting married. I mean, my income gets cut in half and it went to zero. But we ended up getting married, and I'll never forget. And this is just this is when I look back, this was one of those micro fractures that led to a significant, break in our marriage. And the night of our rehearsal dinner, I completely get blitzed. And I'm a perfectly flawed guy. I mean, that's how God created all of us. But at that time, you put on like you said earlier, a different representation. Well, I go ahead and get blitzed because, hey, you know what? It's the last night before I'm a married man, right? And I go and knock on Ashley's door, and I go in her room just to see her, and she ends up bawling her eyes out. I'm drunk. and I sit on the bed, and it bounces me off of the bed, and I fall on the floor. This is her wedding day. This is 1 a.m. Her wedding day.
Jeez.
I was going to attempt to get some love, just speaking real and being, just being as raw as I possibly can. She is crying her eyes out. Her maid of honor's in there telling me to get out. That's how I started our wedding day.
Wow.
Crushing it.
I did not go to sleep that night. And I was actually looking for other jobs and careers because I didn't know if this business thing was going to work or not.
Right.
So I didn't go to sleep the night of my wedding. I take Adderall, pretty much drug my foot around the entire day because I was still dealing with the Achilles tear and the recovery. Get married, have a blast, and we go to Costa Rica. And it was that time of the month for Ashley. Well, okay.
And she
weren't lining up.
loved this story, probably, right?
Oh, dude, I've told it thousands of times. It's just like we're such an open book now because we have
That's awesome.
This is why God put us on this earth, so we can. I'm speaking to some couple out there, another man that is definitely a former self of me, and I just have a few more ripples in the pond.
Right.
Did I tell you guys how excited I was to have Cole on tonight?
Yeah, exactly. He's making yours look good.
No.
He's making Ben's marriage look good.
But she. So long and short on the honeymoon, there was no sex, no oral sex, and that's when I got pissed off, and I didn't realize she was taken advantage of in college. So selfish me goes to the bar again. And gets blitzed, so this becomes a pattern. Right. Well, we come back to Central Arkansas. A month later, we settle in, and we're sitting at our little coffee table in this house we just bought, our starter home. And I said, I just don't think this is going to work. You talk about a girl that had just moved from the beach of North Carolina to a landlocked state in Central Arkansas, trusted me every step of the way, and definitely deserved a hell of a lot better. Right. Talk about a tough woman, and God knew what God was doing because she had to be in my life, because if not, I was going to bulldoze someone else. Right. And she goes, okay, well, yeah, that's not going to happen. And we're going to figure this out. A week later, she brings me a pregnancy test. And I'm drunk on Jack Daniels, and I throw the pregnancy test in the bushes because she was pregnant with a daughter, because it wasn't going to my plan. So this is like talk about the first 90 days of our relationship, right. The representation, then the first 90 days of my marriage is like complete like destruction, like me just throwing match after match on everything and then burning it down.
And you went scorched earth, didn't you, for about 180 days? Holy cow!
Yeah,
dude, she must be lovely. Like, she's a lovely, awesome person. Like,
incredible, angelic. I mean, I literally throw it in the bush, walk off, don't talk to her the rest of the night. I mean, think about that, right? Now, I don't ever shame myself. And I don't ever look back and say, well, damn it, I regret doing that. Would I do it again? Hell no. But the fact of the matter is, that's a part of what's helped me get to where I am today. And she's such a forgiving. That's what she taught me more than anything. The greatest thing that we can do is forgive outside of love thyself. That's what Christ has shown us. I mean, think about that. He died on the cross for us. I mean, he knew he knew his mission at the end of the day. Right. But to speed it up, I mean, the first 6 years of my marriage, we had 2 kids back to back. One of Ava Madison flatlined on the operating table. We almost lost Ashley. Landon was born 12 months later. Our marriage was a sexless marriage. We had no connection. Ships passing in the night. We were the family that showed up to church fighting, walked into church happy, walked out of church fighting. That was us. It was a mask. It was an Instagram filter. So, like, when people ask me, Are you on social media a lot? I'm really not. I like to detox from technology a lot. And that's just me personally, because, that first 6 years of my marriage, we lived the filter the entire time. I did more than she did. And it got really, really tiresome. I got so tired of seeing the man staring back at me in the mirror. I mean, goodness gracious, she was pregnant with Landon, and the business started picking up. And so if the business was picking up and money was flowing in, everything was good. But you know what else I did is that I held the money bag over her head. Yeah. Like, this is my money. This is not yours. It was pretty much not a free country in my house. And this is me being truly vulnerable with you guys, right? I would rather go masturbate than pursue my wife. And then I'd wonder why my wife wouldn't want to make love.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
that's what I tell guys all the time. You'll sit and watch pornography in the other room. Your wife's laying in the bedroom. All you have to do is pursue her instead of trying so hard to hide this addiction and this, it ends up screwing your marriage up more than anything. Just like you said, if you're not pursuing her, the last thing she wants to do is have sex. And if you're out doing what you're not supposed to be doing, you're going to end up becoming the Minute Man and screw everything up at that point in time. So
100%. Yeah, 100%. And it was really we were in Oxford, Mississippi, and I was doing cocaine off of a counter. And keep in mind, I'm a professional, successful guy. I check all the boxes. That's the problem. Check all the, the box lifestyle. And she's pregnant with Landon in the next room, but yet I go out on the town all night only to come back in for her to wake up to me handing her a cup of coffee. If there was one addiction that I had to that woman, it was white lying, and it finally caught up with me. And this is where I'll speed the story up for the sake of time.
Oh, you're good, buddy.
Yeah, it was really that 5th year when I finally broke. I finally internally started to break down, and I started really despising the man I was seeing in the mirror. I was not there for my kids. I was absent father even when I was present. I was killing myself in my work, even though money was flowing in. It was non-existent relationship. My health set. Yeah, it was about vanity and working out, about how, really how I looked more than how I felt and how I performed. That's just where I was at that time in my life. And if you want a radical change, you got to do something radically different. Right. And I love the quote by, I think it's George Bernard Shaw, who says, the reasonable man adapts to the world. The unreasonable man makes the world adapt to him. And at that point, I had no other options because I just had started therapy. Ashley was ready to go to North Carolina, get a divorce. I was hiding a little Adderall. And when I couldn't get Adderall, I would buy B12 and snort B12 at my office. No lie, because I needed an edge. I needed a performance edge. That's where my mind was. And I mean, it just got so tiring to keep up with that dark side, that of me. And really what started changing.
So what year was this, just to get a reference?
Man, it's 2022, so it had to be in 2013, 2014.
Okay,
something
good.
Around there. Yeah, somewhere around there. I could be off, but yeah, I mean, but I had this intern working for me, and I just ripped him to shreds. He did something I don't even remember now. He's still on my team, and he's like a little brother of mine. But I was a leader. I was emulating a leader that I was mentored by. A very loving leader, someone that could run really hard at night, could produce during the day. I mean, just that's who I was basically mirroring myself off of. And I just remember him walking out crying. And I just slid down my desk and I just started bawling. I shut the door, slid down the side of my desk, and I just started bawling in the floor. Bawling. And I was like, man, my mind is like a monkey jumping from branch to branch. All I can focus on is how fast I can respond to an email. I mean, this isn't fun. This isn't how it should be. And I'm losing my wife. She's already gone, plain and simple. She's checked out from our relationship. She's just being a phenomenal mother to our children. I mean, do you really want to, a stranger, walking your daughter down the aisle? And that's the things I started telling myself and started visualizing. So long and the short of that, I just started looking for different avenues that I knew would wake me up in a major way. And I linked up with some SEALs on the West Coast. And when I linked up with them, I went out for a camp, and I'll never forget running my first mile. And it was something radical for me at the time, because as a Central Arkansas boy, meditating, visualization, I grew up traditional Catholic. So, some of this stuff was foreign to me per se. And it was really testing some of my worldviews, but it felt so damn good to start releasing some of this weight I had been carrying around that I had placed on myself. And I'll never forget running that first mile and I hadn't ran a mile since my Achilles tear. And I remember a SEAL being right beside me on one side, and my mentor now, who I can call night or day, on my left side, Brandon. And I just remember running that mile. It was like the most liberating experience that I'd ever felt, because I had overcome a major hurdle in my mind, and it felt so freeing to my heart. And I remember getting on the beach, and they made us hold a 4-minute plank, and I've held hours of them now. But that 4-minute plank, the fire I felt in my belly, the fire I felt in my soul, and then jumping in the Pacific, it was a reinvention for me at that point. And I remember flying back from San Diego saying, I'm going back and I want more. But right now I have to focus on me. And that's really where I went all in on my therapy. At this point, there was still no God, no Christ, no studying, no reconnecting there. God for me was tapping into a higher power for myself, understanding why I was created, working through the soul side of my life, the soul set, if you will. And so I made a point. I was like, you know what? I'm done with all this crap. I'm done with it. I'm burning the boat. But there was one thing that I was not done with, and that was white lying, and it eventually caught up with me. Fast forward 2 years. So Ashley and I get better. I'm meditating. I'm journaling. I'm waking up at 0 dark 30, which is something I've always done, but I was just not as intentional with my time and my energy. Energy is influence at the end of the day. So I started getting those in alignment. And I started saying, you know what, I'm going to let go. I'm going to detach. And that was one of the greatest gifts that I've learned and given myself, is to detach and learn the art of fulfillment versus achievement, and understanding how all that worked together. And I firmly believe you have to love thyself to love the world. And when I say that, it's not in the narcissistic way, but God created you for a reason. And I started figuring that out. I started really liking what was staring back at me. I started loving that Ashley, and I started reciprocating without expecting anything in return with her. It's kind of like a death by 1,000 paper cuts in reverse. You know what I mean? In the relationship.
Well, I always teach my men that you need to outserve your wife.
That's a phenomenal way to say it.
That's you learn to outserve. That way you're not always expecting something in return. That's the ultimate. That's what God created us to do, is serve, not to be served. You know, we are to be last, not first. And that's all in your marriage. And that's why men were created stronger. We were created, you know, to be that spiritual head of the household that allows us to go in and be sacrificial. You know, Ephesians 5 says, love your wife as Christ loved the church. So how did Christ love the church? Well, he sacrificed himself for it. So that's what we have to do as well. We have to sacrifice for our wives and our children, even though we may want to go sit on the couch or the lazy boy or plop on, you know, go to Xbox or, you know, go zone out. We're to be there to serve our families.
Yeah. When you find out how much God truly loves you, you find that out through loving others.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Not through how much God loves you. Mm-hmm. God says you love because I first loved you.
Right.
And so, like with my grandkids, my 3 grandkids, 8, 5, and 4, is when I finally realized in life how much God loves me. And it's because of how I look at them, how much I love them, how much I want good for them, how much I want to protect them. And that's where I realized how much God loves me, was how much I love them.
That's good.
That's powerful. Yeah, that's
good.
powerful.
All right, sorry to cut you off there.
No, I mean,
Continue.
This is about, hey guys, this is for me, every time I get the opportunity, this is about bettering each other. That's what we're here to do, man. But yeah, so for really when I started to make the moves in my life, it felt really, really good. And I was like, you know what? I can't be the only screwed up business professional that's wearing a mask out here. And I got really tired of just having to suppress what I wanted to fully say, but I wasn't ready. God wasn't, he was readying me for something bigger. And I didn't realize it until 2 years, 2 years in the future, when I went through Hell Week as a civilian. And I was like, you know what, this is something that I have to do. I must do it because it's going to completely make me change my identity. And it's a simulation camp for BUD students and then civilians like myself. And it's 100% straight out of BUDs, Navy SEAL BUDs.
Right.
Hell Week. Well, during that time, I also bought a CrossFit gym, and it was a complete dumpster fire. It's like a sorority and fraternity mixed into one. And I didn't buy it because I wasn't into CrossFit at that time. I was literally, this wasn't but 7 years ago, just finding my path and renewing my confidence in my health set that started connecting me with my mindset, my heart set, and my soul set. I just wanted to have a place to where I can coach men one-on-one. And I knew through the physical mountain, it was going to allow me to crack the vulnerability and the mindset, all this stuff I'd been working with the SEALs on for close to 2 years. And it was a dumpster fire. I was putting cash in it left and right, but not telling her anything about it. But our marriage was getting better. We fool ourselves into mistaking movement with progress a lot. Yes. And that's the truth. We really, really do, until we get slapped in the face and our jaw gets broken. Then we truly wake up.
It's funny you say that. I had a company. It was a multi-million-dollar company that I had for years, and I didn't realize. You don't realize the holes that you have in your business until the cash flow stops. Once the cash flow stops, you realize all these holes that you were filling with cash. And masking it with cash. And I was doing that in my personal life. You know, I was letting my wife spend as much as she wanted, because over here I'm spending this much. And we just had this massive disconnect on exactly what spending good money was, and making sure that we save it and budget it correctly. We just didn't have that, and because we had cash flow coming in.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, when you start borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, and the cash flow stops, you realize real quick where you screwed up. So
yeah,
I
100%.
right there. And then I'm going back trying to make sure that my wife, you know, at least I'm trying to cover up the lies, and it wasn't even lies. It was just no communication whatsoever.
And that's where we were.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where I was. And the other thing too, is like, I was at that time, I never wanted to admit defeat to her. Yeah. It was more me shaming myself. And that's just pride is worse than cancer. Right. Like it kills more men than heart disease and cancer combined. Mm-hmm. And that's just where I was at that time. But I go through the hell week. I was 1 of 9 out of 50 to graduate. But lo and behold, God put a special person in my life that completely changed my life for the better. And if I tear up, I mean, I'm not going to apologize for it. If I tear up, this is 5 years ago, well, 6 years ago now, that this man changed my life, and he's immortal. You know, that's the thing. We should all want to chase immortality based upon the good that we put out in this world as men. Amen. And Kirk shows up on the line with me. We're both Smurfs, meaning like we're short. And we kicked it off. And I mean, there's 50 dudes, Bud students, you know, Rangers, right, other guys that are just like, hey, do I want to go through Buds, etc. out there. And I mean, right out the gate, it's just game time. And that's what I love. That's what I craved and hunger for, even to this day. And right, the pressure was on. I wasn't going to go back home with my tail tucked in between my legs. I wasn't going to quit. And one guy after another started dropping, but there was Kirk and myself the entire time, linked arm in arm, basically competing against each other in the most healthiest ways, not comparing one bit. We were in it to win it together, right?
Right.
And over the course of 60 hours, it just dwindled down to me, him, and our 7 other teammates. And he and I just got so close of just getting to know each other's family. You know, if he was taking a leak, I was right there beside him. I mean, you weren't going anywhere without that swim buddy.
Right.
And I'll never forget, they broke us up into 2 teams, which is natural. And it was the night ruck, and you don't sleep. I mean, it's 100% just straight up. I mean, it's a beatdown.
Right.
So Kirk was struggling. And I remember we're rucking up this mountain, and it was pays to be a winner. And it was myself and my team and another team. And one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make was giving him to the other team, because the other team had a couple guys drop out. And, you know, I had his rucksack on the front of me and my rucksack on the back of me. My teammates had their rucksacks, etc. But I made the decision for the team, because I knew that on the top of the mountain was going to be hydration and a break, etc. And they struggled. Kirk was struggling. And I remember getting up there, and we're laying on our bellies, and the instructor sees me crying. I was crying. Granted, I was also seeing stuff in the sky just like anybody else was at that time. And he said, why are you? He's like, why? Yeah, like, why are you crying? And I said, because I did not want to give my teammate up. These guys are my team. These are my boys. Like, this is how we make it, you know. And guys, everybody that's listening to this, shield to shield, shoulder to shoulder is another ethos of mine. You never do life alone. And at that time, I really was. We trick ourselves into thinking we are not, because we have these surface-driven relationships. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of times men are. Yeah. And
I always use the picture of the lion in the jungle and the herd of antelope that are all out there. As long as the herd of antelope are together, they don't attack. But the moment that they encroach and the herd takes off, and then you've got this one that veers off the other way, that's the one that gets eaten. And that's just
the best analogy.
Yeah. Real quick, I saw an interview on Joe Rogan with Andy Stump.
Oh yeah,
from the SEALs, and so he served with Jocko Willink, and then he became a SEALs instructor. And one of the things that he told Joe, he said, everybody that gets into Bud School can do it physically. There's not one person that physically can't do it. He said, but what separated the guys that got through it from the guys that didn't was we over me.
Yeah.
Right. So they tell you stay with your swim buddy, you stay with your team or whatever. And then they'd cause a bunch of ruckus and there would be guys just run off and leave their team. And he said, the guys that got we over me the quickest were the guys that got through it and the guys that kept their world small. They worried about getting to the next meal, like you said earlier. You knew if you got to the top of the hill or whatever it was, you said that there was water there. Mm-hmm. So he said instead of thinking about the whole getting through the day, he thought about getting to the next meal because then he knew he would get 10 minutes of break or whatever it was. Anyway, I thought that was compelling.
That's good.
No, 100%. And it's the smallest victories of our life, which every man should be able to at least jot 3 down in one day. I mean, victory every single day leads to the results that we most desire. I mean, it also puts things in perspective as well for you. Good. And anyway, so Kirk, we come down the mountain. So my boat crew wins up the mountain. Kirk's struggling. We hydrate. We go back down the mountain. Kirk's struggling. He ends up defecating himself. And no one catches it, and I'm just like, hey man, like I've got to tell somebody. I said, no, I'm not quitting. I said, it's not that you're not quitting, brother. Like it's important. He said, no, I'm in it. I'm good. I was like, okay. They check him out and he's like, yeah, he's good, etc. Anywho, long and the short of it, the next day we get all the way through, we go to secure. I mean, I've cleaned this man, been beside him every step of the way. And as we go to secure, he falls out at my feet and the last breath leaves his body.
Holy cow.
And I remember Ashley running up because this is a big deal. I mean, even the guys that rang the bell, even the guys that did not make it show up to celebrate this small team that glued together to complete what a lot of people think is impossible.
Right.
And it has deep meaning to a lot of us, and you grow very close within that short time frame just due to the post-traumatic growth that is basically injected into the equation.
Right.
And keep in mind, I've been training for this for almost 2.5 years, complete identity shift. He passes. I mean, it was one of the most spiritual things that I've been a part of, but it was almost it shattered the calluses around my heart that it finally needed to shatter. It was the most awakening moment that I should say that I had ever experienced. And Ashley's running, they're doing CPR, we're out of it. I'm crying. It's like, what? It just happened. And I fast forward a week. Kirk's passed, 2 little boys, wife in Long Island, New York. And I have a shadow box of him in my office. And he was the one that actually is the founder of the School of Man, of SOM. Okay. Because a week later, check this out, a Christian radio show similar to this one. Now, it was not geared towards men's ministry, but here locally gets a ton of listeners, asked me to come on and tell my story in full.
Wow.
2.5 hours. I told that I told my story in full, and I'm talking about all the way from my childhood to my cheating ways in high school, to the white line, to the addiction to validation, to the calluses on my heart, losing my virginity, sleeping with countless women, Adderall, cocaine, being able to produce. Just, I completely let it go. Now, I had been in therapy with my wife for almost 2.5 years at that point. Guess who? Not the only person who had never heard that outside of all the other thousands upon thousands. The most important person was Ashley.
Oh my goodness.
And all the while, like, she couldn't trust. I finally gained her trust back.
Right.
And then, like quicksand, whoop, I just went down.
Starting all over. Now, how long was this after you're married?
That was 6 years.
Well, you've been married 6 years, and just you finally gotten all leveled out, and
Yep.
here you imploded.
Kirk, and that's why I bring Kirk up, is because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been on that rate. He saved my marriage. Ultimately, I have to do the work. He saved my life. He showed me what it means to live and not exist. That's when you heard me lead off with the ethos. That's what that comes from.
Right. That's great.
He, true believer in Christ, true believer in God, puts me on a Christian radio show. At the time, I didn't have any relationship.
Right.
And and I'll never forget. Like, she calls me. She said, "I'll see you in therapy. I don't even want to see you this weekend."
Holy cow. No kidding.
Yeah. And I remember showing up to therapy, Chenal Family Therapy. J.C. McDaniel, who is a dear friend of mine now, part of the School of Man, combat veteran, Marine. He just looked at me, and she's bawling her eyes out again on one side of the couch, and I'm on the other. He goes, "Brother, the amount of money you make is going to solve this issue." He says, and he knife hands me, and he said, "Un-F yourself." Now, he says the full words.
Right.
And the one thing you can always get me on is, like, disappointment. I never want to disappoint anyone that I highly admire and respect, or someone that puts a lot of energy into me, that believes in me.
Right.
And we go out into the car, and I don't say anything. It's like that pit in your stomach that every man has felt. Every man's felt it. I don't care who you are, because you're perfectly flawed. And I couldn't say anything. There was nothing I could say at this point. Kirk was making me face up, man up,
Right.
and deal with the things that matter most. Quit avoiding quit running from this, Cole. Now you got to run towards it, Cole. You have to deal with it head on, because your wife's here sobbing again.
Right. Dang.
And she sat there and sobbed, and she's like, "I don't know what to do with you. I don't know what to do with you. I don't know what to do with you." I never once went into the woe is me state. I never once went into the victim mind state. I went into, it's time to fight. Here we go again. It's time to fight. I'm tired of the self-sabotage, Rogers. And I talk to myself a lot. I do. I will get after myself in the mirror. But that man is how School of Man got its start. I did not start School of Man with a business plan.
Right.
I was invited to be a guest speaker after they heard me on a radio show, and I told the story in full to a men's group. And man, they basically looked at me, and then they went back in their Bible. And after I was ultraly vulnerable, and I was very raw at that time. And that's the only way I knew how to best teach and present. And it was very liberating for me. And that's when I said, you know what, this isn't working for me. I was very disenfranchised with what I saw locally.
Right.
No real change, no results. And so I set out on a quest. It wasn't even called School of Man. I had to heal myself. I had to create my own reality, if you will. Right. And through that CrossFit gym, of all things, there's one man that I knew would go toe to toe with me and would buy into my training and would buy into how I would train, go back to my white belt ways, go back to, the breathing, which I never left. the journaling, but now we're going to focus on things that matter most. Now we're going to train like God created us to train. Now we're going to be ultraly vulnerable, right? Nothing's off the table. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of all of it. It's go time, baby. It's go time. And all of a sudden, organically, guys just started showing up.
Praise God. That's awesome.
And it's the craziest thing.
So this was when? When was this?
5 years ago.
Okay, so 5 years. Okay.
Yes, it was 2017.
Okay.
2016, 2017. And I said, you know what? And I would always push back on Christ. I would always push back on God. But, you know, I could go train for 4 hours. I could hold an hour playing. We could do log PT. It got us to the point. I knew through the physical that what I've learned through the SEALs is like, hey, I know that this piece of it, we have to train hard.
Right.
We do. Be smart, but train hard, because that's going to give you to the vulnerability piece, to the emotional piece, then the mental piece, and the soul piece. I knew all of that. And that's how SOM got its grassroots start. But I did it to where I was like, I just want a ragtag crew, men from all walks of life, but I'm going to limit it to 12, pretty much. So if Jesus could change the world with 12, I mean, you know, that dude's the ultimate warrior at the end of the day. There's something to that formula.
Right, exactly.
And so what I thought to myself was like, you know what? They didn't know it at the time until finally I started saying, guys, I have to be reborn as a man. I have to for my family, but for myself, for my future self, etc. And this is why we are doing it this way, right? Like they bought into the ultimate vision. I was like, your dream, your vision will fit inside this vision. Like, that's just how this whole thing works. We're going to better each other as men by helping each other focus on what matters most. And lo and behold, everything started getting better because I recruited the most highest caliber men, or the most highest caliber men showed up in my life showed me how to be a father, how to be a husband. They didn't have to say anything. I just needed to be around them. And it was very magical, one of those magical moments when, and in School of Man, when you go through our brotherhood class, you have big missions that are accompanied with what we call an alpha box that embody our core 5: live, love, learn, lead, and legacy. And there's gear in it, book, and etc. Then there's a lesson plan, and we follow it. And anywho, well, in order to earn my alpha box that month, Adam Pratt brought a Captain America suit for me and a Captain America suit for Landon. And Landon was like 5 at the time. And we had a Nerf war at the CrossFit gym, which is 18,000 square feet. Usually it's you bear crawling for a mile or carrying a log for a mile with your team. But that was the hardest thing for me because I have an addiction to control, which most guys like me do, which all that is an insecurity. Mm-hmm. But he forced me to be playful with my son. And I'm so grateful now, because now he kisses me. He tells me he loves me. And when he was diagnosed as autistic in January, guess who was there right there beside him? Dear old dad.
Amen.
And you know, this is a process, guys. Nothing can be microwaved.
Right.
Nothing can be microwaved. You can't Amazon Prime this stuff. Mm-hmm. I mean, Jesus went out in the desert 40 days, 40 nights. I mean, for the love of Pete, it just, you think about him dying on the cross. I mean, the ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate art of love right there. And you got to kill your weak self to find your true self. And that's just the truth.
And we see that a lot too in our men's ministry, is that everybody, you know, unfortunately what people are looking at is they're looking at you and they're looking at me. I've been a Christian 17 years. I've been a pastor for 15 of those 17 years. We have a men's ministry, you know, like an international men's ministry, and it's taken 17 years to get there. Yeah. And then guys come into my sphere of influence, and the next thing you know, they're wanting to be where I'm at without putting in the work and trying to get to that place. And it's kind of like I always say, like, you know, Christianity is a lot like exercise. You have to have a plan. You have to be consistent. You have to put in the work, and you have to do it daily. And if you don't, you're not going to be at a place physically or spiritually where you want to be. And
100%.
Most men will not set up a 2-year, 5-year, 10-year goal. They're wanting a 90-day, what kind of pill can I take and lose 70 pounds? I've watched Ben sitting across the table from me. Literally, we've got a picture of our very first podcast compared to now, and I sent it to him a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, and you can just see that and this has been 6 months that he is just dwindling down the weight and getting rid of the weight.
Love that.
And on the flip side, I've watched him for the last 6 years grow in his Christianity. Like, cool. He came into my church the very first day thinking within a month he would probably be preaching, and really quick we wiped that out pretty quick. Actually, he did that himself. We didn't even have to do anything.
Yeah, it's
but he's grown over the last 6 years, which is beautiful.
Yeah, I say this all the time, and one day Jody's going to say, listen, you can't say this on the podcast for at least a month. Proverbs 4:23. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. It's a heart issue. Yeah. I used to want to, when I was 261 pounds, I used to want to do it for a vain reason. Mm-hmm. Now I want to do it for my health.
Right.
I just want to do it for my health. I'm 51 years old. Mm-hmm. I've been overweight since 2013. 2013 was the last time I was under 200 pounds. And so it's just different now. And that's what men want. Men, you have to, whether you're selling, whether you're discipling, whether you're helping men, every issue in our life is our heart. Mm-hmm. That's the issue. That's where some of the verses call it the wellspring, which is the source.
Right.
It's the beginning. It's
yeah.
where it all lies. All the bad stuff, all the reasons why we do the things that we do. That's why Jesus says, "I will give you a new heart."
Right.
The problem is, as Christians, sometimes we think that's immediate.
Right.
He says, "I come back to restore. I came back to make new." What? Your heart.
Amen.
Just like you did to your life, and just like you're teaching men in Son of Men, you're getting them to reprogram every bad habit, every lack of discipline. I don't even know the intimacy of the program, but I can kind of tell you're basically reprogramming men.
Yep, that's good.
Or helping men reprogram.
Right.
100%. I mean, if you push down pain as a man, it will come out and rear its ugly head in other forms.
Yeah. Most of the time, anger.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
100%. And that's been these past 5 years for me, guys. My wife and I were rocking and rolling, extremely in love, falling in love all over again.
It's awesome.
The memory, it's the things. I mean, it's the memories and the experiences that I care about more than anything. That's just it. Memories and experiences. And over the course of 5 years with School of Man, it is my ministry. You asked me that in a messenger. It's 100% why God put me on this earth. And it's a different way of doing things. And you hit the nail on the head. Reprogramming is definitely a good way to say it. But at the end of the day, you got to do the work.
Exactly.
I have to. That's why I start off with my ethos, is because that is a stark reminder every day that I say it to myself that I have to maintain my humility, my integrity. I have to be lion-hearted. I have to live and not exist, to be loyal to God, myself, my family, my brothers, and my wife. Those are all things that were born out of my story and other men's stories of saying, like, you know what, this is going to go on for over 100+ years. That is our mission, and our vision is to be a force for good for the world for over 100+ years. And we do it in an unconventional way, because I'm an unconventional character
right.
at the end of the day. And but what I've learned over the past 5 years, after doing 24 hours of burpees, I've done some what people think that is freaking crazy stuff.
Also,
24 hours.
you got the world record on burpees.
Well,
Seriously?
it's probably broken by now. I
Broken
know
by
there's
now.
that was one of those deals that, again, it had nothing to do about a world record.
Right.
And it had everything to do, because I'm a big patriot. I'm a big believer in our veterans. So is Sam. And it had everything to do to call to action to men to live and not exist. I can do 24 hours of burpees. Has nothing to do about bragging rights. You know, people
Right.
find that to be interesting. I'm just like, I was like, you know what? It was one of those deals. I told somebody that I'm going to do something, and it was that November, that Thanksgiving a few years ago. I told Chris Black, who's one of my head trainers at School of Man, said, I'm going to do 24 hours of burpees, and I'm going to set the record.
Wow.
And he started laughing. He said, okay. And when I say I'm going to do something, I honor my commitments, because every time you don't, you lower your self-worth. There's so many men that break their contracts with themselves, and then they wonder why they're always starting over, or why self-sabotage is right around the corner. And the one thing,
He's speaking to us, Ben.
so, but
That's good.
Well, I think it's important. Like, one of the things I want to come back to and just reemphasize, it's process. Like,
yes,
when you have a solid process, and this is something I'm not in great shape now. When I was in great shape, there was all these physical things that I could do on a whim. Like, hey, we're gonna go climb this mountain, or we're gonna go on like a 3-day hike, or we're gonna. And people thought, wow, that's impressive that you can just do that. No, it was all processed. Meaning, I had a process in place where I was disciplined with my fitness. Then the box of things that I can do, or my capacity is much larger. Our spiritual process is no different. If I'm in prayer every day, if I'm reading my Bible every day, if I'm focused on those things that have exponential growth tied to them, my capacity for growth, ministry, and what I'm able to do are higher. Not because I'm extra special. It's just because I can do that because my process is solid, and the process is the purpose. Meaning, we're not here to be perfectly complete. We're here to be a part of that process, a part to grow closer to Christ. And I think that translates over into your personal life as well, not just your spiritual, but it's just the process.
it's all
Subscribe
phases. Yeah, it's all phases. And I see on Friday at headquarters, I had we have a football field right behind us, and I had the group there, big group, and I said, what do you see behind me? And of course, guys said, what's a football field? It's football season's coming up. I said, no. So what you see, I said, let's look at this end zone right here. And being a pastor, you're the best of the best at doing this, right? Making analogies and helping people relate to stories and visualizations, etc. I said, it's always hardest in the beginning. I don't care who you are. It's always hardest in the beginning for change. Like, it's going to take absolute guts and grit to wake up at 3:45 in the morning every single freaking day. It's going to take guts and grit to go back into the therapist office and write in your journal. I said, that's the hard. I said, but you see in the middle here, 10, 20, 30, 40, we see all the, I said, that right there is the field of dreams. It could also be the field of crap. And what I also say, and I see a lot of times, is guys are so in love with their former self that they're not willing to run through the field of crap, or what I like to call the field of dreams, that they just will go right back to the beginning. But if you make it, and when you do make it on the other side, because that is the process, you finish to begin. That is gorgeous. That is exactly where most of us want, but 1% only actually get there. Because what I find, guys, more than anything, and it was really easy for me in the beginning too, is to fall back in love with my former self, because that's the easy button.
Right.
He sneaks back in every single chance he can get. And over 5 years, 6 years that I've just embraced this mindset, this mantra. It is the process that refines us. Kirk nickname is the Metal Forger. It's on all of our insignias. You earn our Phoenix and Psalm. It takes up to 3 years to really do that. That stands for rebirth. It's a body of work. But in the Phoenix is a sword into the flame on that insignia, and it stands for the Metal Forger. Life is a flame and you're the sword. Well, how does the sword get tempered? It's through the hammer. You constantly have to bring the hammer back spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, so on and so forth. And that's how finally last year I earned my Phoenix after it was the 4th year that SOM had been established, because I could look at my wife and say, I don't white lie to you anymore. I serve you, just like we talked about on top of the hour. And this isn't going to stop, by the way. There are no finish lines in our life. This is only going to get better. And I know myself so well now. Know thyself, right? And that to me is the most beautiful thing in our life. Is the process, is the guts that it takes. Like the 24 hours of burpees, it had nothing to do about the burpees. It was about me holding and honoring a commitment to myself and saying what I was going to complete it. I was going to do it to the best of my abilities. In fact, I did a test for 8 hours and have that record too, but it's not going to be in a record book anywhere. And that's okay by me. I don't care.
Right.
I mean, I did 3,600 burpees in 8 hours and CrossFit burpees. You know, I've done a lot of intense stuff, and I don't do it for recognition. I'm detached from all that. I do it because it allows me to teach. It allows me to grow, but it allows me to make sure that I'm staying on my set point. And I'm always shifting into a new identity. No different than a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, a leaf falling off the tree and growing back. That's how I operate in my life now, because we only have 86,400 seconds, and God has a plan for me. And I'm just one of those guys that when and if I get that opportunity to go up there, I'm going to make sure he's not pissed off at me. I want to make sure he's saying, yep, you used everything all these gifts you accumulate along the way. Kurt, between Kurt, the therapy sessions, all these magic moments that have happened, and you didn't use them. That's not okay by me. And that's just how I think and operate, gentlemen. And that's how SOM operates.
That's great. Now, when was it that you gave your life to the Lord? Do you remember that moment?
Oh, man. It was one of those that I'm sure it's like anybody else. I just really haven't talked about it. Like, I've always believed in a higher power. I will say that, right? But when I gave my life back to the Lord, it would have been not this past April, but the April before. So really just closing in on almost a 2-year delta, almost. And it was when I saw, like, we have every March, it's a 3-day event here, invitation only, called Rebirth. And a lot of my guys we have every walk of life in SOM, agnostics and Christians, etc. And Rebirth is no different, like I said earlier, from caterpillar to butterfly. Jesus resurrected is not to take place of Jesus by any stretch, but when I saw one of our SEAL instructors break down and cry, and he finally let it all go. I mean, he's a very decorated SEAL. I mean, that's when I knew there was something bigger at play. And it was because of just the environment, just the energy and the electricity and the spiritual work. It was the Holy Spirit at work. I don't have anything else to say. And then getting to see his SEAL teammate, and these guys are very close, like brothers, hugging him. I mean, these guys have been 9 combat deployments. Wow. And this guy over here, and I'm keeping their names, of course, out of this, over here has given his life to Christ. This guy struggles with it. SEAL sniper, 9 deployments, same over here. And they're sitting there hugging and loving, and it had to do with a niece of his, a young niece, passing. And he just had been carrying that weight around for so long. He's seen so much stuff downrange. I mean, it's unreal. Right. That's something that he was carrying along, because a guy in SOM had earned his Phoenix, my boy Travis May, and he had lost his son. And and it almost tore apart their marriage. And you have to come and give your testimony in front of everybody, families, kids, and everybody, before you earn your Phoenix. And you have to go through our series. You got to go through the whole, what we call the path in SOM. and then you go through a Crucible 12 and a Crucible 24 and a Crucible 55, and then, and only then by committee are you awarded your Phoenix based upon your body of work, that you've done the work, and your wife says, yeah, hey, he's a different man. Or we say, yep,
like
you are a different man, meaning like you've actually worked on the things that matter most. And Travis tells that story, guys, and I watched both of them just bawl their eyes out. And that's when I knew at that time, I was like, man, I can't keep, again, I got to focus on what matters most. I can't keep running from this, and I got to run towards it.
Praise God. That is awesome. It's crazy because you said something there. What I do with men in leadership in the church is, before I allow them to step into leadership, I talk to their wife first. In order to find out where they are. Are they loving her like Christ loved the church? Are they reading their Bible? Are they washing her with the water of the word? Are they, raising their children to be godly in an ungodly world? And, when a man is doing that at home, I can trust that he's going to do it here, here at the church as well. Or even in Man Up Ministries. A lot of time with our Man Up God's Way ministry, like we'll take our guys to the best of our ability and train them, disciple them, and then, give them the ability to speak and at our conferences and stuff like that. And, just helping them grow in a parachurch organization outside of the church, which then will give them the ability to grow in the church. I like how you did that. They can pass on, was it the 55? Is that what you say? What was
so it stands for, so you go through like with School of Man, and that's where kind of taking it back.
So, what? Okay, go ahead. Yeah. I was going to say, what could you explain to us what?
Yeah. So what I saw is like, okay, what we're talking about right now is like, there's no linear progression. So like when Kirk passed, it was like, okay, he passed, then what's next? Like where is the linear progression, like jiu-jitsu for a man? Right. And so when these group of men showed up on my doorstep, and we started building this curriculum and lesson plan, and I said, you know what? I did not know anybody before I showed up to the Hell Week simulation. Said, I need you guys. This will not be artificial brotherhood. You're not going to be running around calling yourself brother. You did not earn that term.
Right.
I'm an earned philosophy guy. I said, so we're going to train for 10 months, and you're going to do a 55-hour crucible. It'll be the safest yet most rewarding crucible for you guys in the world. I will run it, bring in instructors. It'll be just next level spiritual. And it was. And for 10 months, we built a curriculum. And that was our first iteration of our curriculum and our lesson plan, focusing on the key tenets that we believe in Psalm. And lo and behold, it was just beyond powerful, class one. But then right around the corner, a second class shows up like, hey, I want some of that. What are y'all doing? And it's very mystique. There's mystery to what we do, and I like to keep it that way. But here's what I saw. As great as the training was, these guys still were not ready, and you hit the nail on the head, to move to the next level, to lead and help grow and really be, develop the discipleship of Psalm. They started regressing. They started going backwards because that was the easy button. Like, hey, we've done all this work for 10 months. I'm good.
Right.
Right. Because that's what we've been institutionalized to believe and think, industrialized.
Do a program for 3-5 months and then be done with it.
That's what we've been industrialized to think.
That's what Ben and I have been trying to get into our heads, is that it's a lifestyle.
Yep.
It's just like Christianity, and you try to tell people all the time that Christianity is not just on Sundays; it is a lifestyle. You've got to make
a lifestyle.
You've got to make sure that you're doing it, daily, and focusing on it. And that's where most men quit.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And so what I started seeing was this regression. Well, I'm still working on myself 100%, and I'm working on myself through basically building Psalm. Well, class 2 comes along, and class 1 is just floating out there, still involved, still helping with the guys, helped with the second crucible, got a lot out of that. And then really over the past 5 years, we have done things the wrong way. That's how you best learn.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Like that's how you best learn. We have recruited, men that do not embody our ethos, our mission, and our vision, and they were in it for themselves, not the we factor, like we talked about earlier. So we got all these good things that have happened over the past 5 years, and what we've done over 5 years, it's evolved to where now you've got multiple phases: freshman phase, sophomore phase, junior phase, senior phase, master level phase. And then along those, you have Crucible 12 hours, then 24 hours, then 55 hours, and then you ultimately earn your Phoenix. Those are optional for you, but the different phases, can take upwards of 2 years to complete. And whenever you hear someone say that, it automatically kind of turns guys off, because it's not a quick fix, because it goes back to, this is a lifestyle for us. We don't need the money, and we basically are doing this because we know how to help men completely just transform their life when you follow and trust the process. And then when you get into one of our classes with our guys that have been here and have trained in the Jedi ways, it just amplifies it so much, the accountability, the standards. And this is men across the globe now that are involved, but we are a smaller outfit because that's how we're designed to be, and that's just how SOM has been. But I always go back to, you never, ever forget your white belt, ever. Always go back to your white belt, always go back to your training. And I'm constantly in reinvention mode, but it's definitely a lifestyle. So just no different than what you think for school: freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, master level, stair steps you up. There's different progressions of training and learning.
We try to disciple our men to make sure that you never forget your salvation date, because that's the pinnacle. That's the high point of your life. And that's probably the closest that you've ever been to God. You felt the Holy Spirit, you gave your life to the Lord, and then the world kicks in and you kind of taper off just a little bit, but you always try to get people back to that point. So is all your training done? Is it done in Arkansas?
So it's done virtually and in Ed headquarters too.
Okay.
So like any guy can start at any time in SOM. If you want to be a part of a class, that right now is only available twice a year. And there's a
class. The class considered is what? A class.
So,
go ahead.
Like initiation?
No, it's basically like right now we have class 12 going on. And so the path is what I just explained, like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, etc. You can do it self-paced.
Okay.
If you want to go through the crucibles, you can go through the crucibles. We have a very high-powered Slack app that's where our central nervous system is, all communications. You can get in different schools like School of Money, School of Movement, School of Ministry, Son of Man, so on and so forth, Fuel. And then the class is just you form into, if it's myself, let's just say it's, myself and 15 other guys across the country. I want more accountability, more standards. I want to go through the crucibles. I want more intentional learning around the lessons that I'm seeing within the path, within the platform. That's what the class is.
So
it produces more. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, let me get some clarity. So when you say class, you mean like I'm part of the graduating class of 03. You're saying like the starting class.
Yes.
Okay, so that clarifies it a little bit. So you're not talking about like a class like, hey, here's a lesson that you can sit in, and we have that twice a year. You're saying a new class of inductees starts twice a year.
Correct.
Am I understanding that? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm tracking with you now.
Yeah. So it's very high touch. And it goes on for the entire time that you are on the path. Right. And it just simply put, it produces incredible results just because the guys that are there, that's what they want. And the instructors, they know they've been down the path already. They are going to take you and walk alongside you, because every man's path is different, but then forge you into an unstoppable, unbeatable team and create incredible brotherhood, vulnerability, and get you ready for those crucibles if that's what you most desire. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. So you're going in this process, you're going through your 5 core.
Yep.
What do you call it? Your 5 core.
Yeah, the core 5. So you have to go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So like right out the gate, like in freshman phase, you go through the ethos. You have to unpack every paragraph. You got to make it your own. You got to develop your own standards, right? SOM doesn't produce Teslas. You are SOM.
Right.
You go through self-awareness and self-expansion and capitalization. So there's 3 different lessons for that. On top of the PT requirements, we're big in the physical aspect of things. You have to pass specific benchmarks in the class in order to continue to progress. Each month, you have a monthly mission with your class to help you grow closer and have some post-traumatic growth built into it. So, and it stair steps you along, and then crucibles come every May and every October. And those are just absolute powerhouse.
So those are on site, is that right? The crucibles?
They are.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we have guys that come in from all across the country for that.
Okay. That is cool. That is really cool. So the School of Men, I was looking at the website earlier. You've got the School of Men, and what other program? Do you have other programs that go along with that?
We do. So so it's under construction right now. So you're about to see a revamp. But under the School of Man, you have multiple schools: School of Movement, School of Money,
right?
School of Mindset, School of Mastery. You have Son of Man. So that's our Christian portion of the School of Man. Right. Yep. And then you got Fuel, which is a separate program. Freedom Unlocked equals lasting change. We got a class going in it right now that's around nutrition, sleep, recovery, and just performing like Tom Brady. You want to get younger while everybody else gets older. So that's an 8-week program there. And then we've got our new platform coming out called the 1% Man Project. And that launches January of 2023. So all that, and School of Marriage too. But yeah, so that all falls under the umbrella of School of Man. And once you get involved, you get access to,
all love it. Right.
Yep.
That is cool. So are you doing business coaching as well through this?
We are. Yep. So it's, we're seeing more men, and you see it too. So that's what the 1% Man Project is. There are so many men that are killing themselves in their business.
Right.
Absolutely selling their souls. And if you sell your soul to the business, it costs a pretty penny to get it back. I know firsthand. And, Christ is at the center of those discussions, but it's a lot of guys in SOM are alphas, not a lot, majority are alphas. Majority own their own business or in a high production role. And it's really easy to get caught up. And I'm just talking to the guys that are listening right now. It's really easy to get caught up with the happy hour. It's really easy to get caught up with the multiple dinners. And, just that's why we have launched the 1% Man Project, because there is a way to go about living an abundant lifestyle without having to give your soul for it. And, but yeah, so we do quite a bit of business coaching.
That's awesome, man.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the later nights, the dinners, and all the above. I've worked in the corporate world for a while. If you want it, you'll find what you want to find.
100%.
You can get stuck in that real quick. Oh, come on, we're just gonna have one more drink, or come on, we want to go check this out, or let's go hit the tables one more time, and all the above.
Yep.
A great trick for that, if you're looking for a quick fix, is before the night even starts, find the people who work out.
Yep.
Hey, who's in the gym in the morning? Oh, cool. I'm going to sit at your guys' table tonight. All right, cool. And then I think you mentioned it when we started. Your network is your net worth. Like that, the people you hang around, you're fine. Loving it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had an email come my way, and this is just stuff that again, you want to be the guy that floats, right? Like the guy that walks in and he leaves the room better than he found it. Everybody knows that guy. You want to leave people better than you found them. Those are just, whenever I start a meeting, I gave a presentation last week to a room full of HR professionals. I said, look, before we even get into this, I said, I want you to know my goal here today is to leave you better than I found you. And I started off in that presentation with the story about Landon being diagnosed autistic, ADHD, depression in January, and tying that into the importance of emotional well-being and taking care of oneself. And I tied it into that week. I'm a strong guy, but thank God I've been working on myself, and thank God, right, that Ashley and I are where we are today, because if this would have happened 5 years ago, it would have completely broke us, because, because at the end of the day, not only do we have that, we put our dog down, and not everybody's a dog person, but it's a big deal with our family. My mom's going through cancer again. My sister has stage 4 cancer. My father-in-law has prostate and bladder cancer. We have those 5 things going on in our life. Okay. Well, and this is how I started off this presentation. I said, thank God I have my training underneath me. Mm-hmm. And I'm being ultra vulnerable here with everybody. I don't know a soul of you in the room, but I want to leave you better than I found you, because here's what I did. I actually, when I got home, got a workout in, and then I screamed in a box. There was an empty box, and I put a box over my head and I screamed in, and they all looked at me like, okay, this dude's crazy. I said, then I ran upstairs and I cried in a pillow. Then I punched the pillow and I dropped elbowed the pillow. Right. And then keep in mind, I'm a guy that goes to therapy, journals, meditates, does everything that you're supposed to do. I said, but I had to get it out. Right. Because it was, when I heard that Landon was autistic, a flood of emotions came over me. Right. But I also knew that I had to be the man for my wife, my family, because we had other things that we were also focused on at the time. So that's the importance of emotional well-being. I said, if we are not taking care of one another, how are we supposed to be good for the company, let alone the mission or the vision? And the point of the moral of that story is, a 1% man isn't afraid to go there. He's not afraid to go there regardless of the situation, because he's always filtering it back on, how do I leave someone better than I found them? I'm not going to go to a dentist who has jacked up teeth. So why am I going to go seek advice from somebody that is completely not all in? I've got to be the guy that goes all in. And people know me within meetings. I don't drink during the week, and they look at me funny, and I don't even drink really during the weekend. In fact, I'm in bed by 8:30, and I was blessed.
You better be.
Yeah, I'm blessed to be on this podcast, and it's one of those deals. Like, it's just one of those deals. It's like, hey, I get it, but I'm going to honor that commitment and still be up tomorrow. And I don't know, I can go on and on and on, guys, but that's the point I was saying in business coaching. I think business coaching is somewhat outdated. And then I think that guys are struggling, and they're looking for like a different way to do things. Like, men want to make memories and experiences. Right. They want to be able to live an abundant lifestyle, whatever you want to define that as, right? Right. But without having to sell their soul to do it. And I'm just seeing more and more men kill themselves in their business. I was in Minneapolis all week last week in leadership meetings, and I'm just looking around saying, dang, like, right. A guy that's 45 looks like he's 62. Like, right. That's not cool. Like, that's just, I'm not okay with that.
Well, that's good. That is good. So with, the coaching, the School of Man, majority of the stuff is local, but you do have the online stuff.
Yes.
Why don't you tell everybody how they can get a hold of you or hold of the ministry, or and anything else that you want to, say? I know this, and we'll actually tag that. We've got a group texting going over for all of our social media over here, and we'll actually tag this here in just a second. But you've got a free ebook as well on the website. Is that correct?
That's correct. So like, that's a part of that freshman phase, and there's a lot more in detail. So the battle guide is something I created for myself 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And we can either use a shotgun approach or a rifle approach. In SOM, we like to use the rifle approach, and that's what the battle guide is. So go to schoolofman.live, not live. It's a play on words, LIVE, because you live and you don't exist. And get the battle guide, and basically I got 7 emails, and you can book even a call with me if you want to have a one-on-one. There are not very many slots available, but I love connecting one-on-one with guys just to get to know you. Do that. I mean, pick up the book, schoolofmanbook.com. It's not my story. It's a story of so many men pouring their hearts out in that book, being truly vulnerable, talking about everything from their sexual abuse, of course, to divorce, on down the line. It's like, hey, gives you permission to be a real man at the end of the day, right? Those are the best ways to get started and to get involved. And there's a lot of great things coming down the pipe, because SOM's always under construction. We're always growing and evolving. And follow me on social media. I'm active when I want to be active. I know I put out an email the other day to the tribe that says F the algorithm, because I'm just one of those guys that I'm not a big social media cat. I do it because I know that's how I can impact others, and I put stuff out there when I'm truly inspired. So anyway, follow me on social, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and feel free to message me. I always answer them.
Well, brother, go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, one last thing. School of Man Foundation. We do have a foundation, 501c3, seeing that 40% of men, deal with depression, and 30% of men don't want to talk about it because they feel they feel like no one wants to listen, or they feel embarrassed. That's complete crap. The School of Man Foundation is there to better a man through making vulnerability be really, really freaking cool, plain and simple. And it ties into our overall mission and ethos in the School of Man of bettering men by helping each man focus on what matters most. So there you have it. It's a mouthful.
That is awesome, brother. Well, you killed it, man. A great story, and we loved the ministry, or the men that you're reaching out there as well. That you're just trying to get them both spiritually and physically, and we appreciate that. It's good to good to get to know you. Hey, I was going to ask you a question. Do you know Cody Bobe? Have you heard of SoulCon? Okay.
No.
He does a lot like what you're doing right now, but it's Cody Bobe. SoulCon is the name of his ministry.
Cool.
But it's much like, it's kind of in the same avenue that you've got going on, and he does a lot of the military training and programs and challenges and stuff like that. So he's
Cody Bobe. I'll look him up for sure.
Cody Bobe, yeah, he's a good guy. So. Well, brother, man, I know it's past your bedtime. We appreciate you staying up with us, and we will let you go, and we're just going to wrap it up here in just a minute. We'll be praying for you and your wife and your children, and we just hope you continue to reach more and more men for the sake of the gospel.
Thanks, Cole. God bless.
Yeah, thanks.
Hey, extremely grateful, guys. I love what you're all about, and there's not enough of us, plain and simple. There's not enough of us. It's our responsibility to change the world, and I'm extremely grateful. Y'all made me so much better tonight, and I'm going to go to bed with a full heart. I can tell you that.
Well, man, you have a great night's sleep, and have a great workout in the morning. I'll be thinking about it when I'm still asleep.
All right, man.
Later, brother.
Hey.
All right, bye. All right.
That was awesome, man.
Amen. That was good.
I think it's really, really, I mean, I know I already said it, but the process, we talked about it last week, the process. I got to throw it into action with one of my buddies as we're talking about, his life and all the above, and how do we man up? How do we do the things we have to do? How do we lead the ones around us? And it's process. It's repetitive. It's doing the same thing that we know will eventually bring forth fruit to us.
Right.
It's not fun. It's not sexy.
Yeah, I'm learning.
It's not great waking up at 3:00 in the morning.
I'm learning in my weight loss journey, which obviously I'm not like this fitness guru. But you know what I'm learning? I'm learning to love the work.
Yeah.
As opposed to the goal.
Right.
Like there's a goal, but I'm trying to get less and less focused on the goal, weigh myself less.
Right.
Just focus on being healthy.
Right.
Just focus on doing
That's
the things that scientifically will make you healthy, and that weight goal will end up being there
Right.
somewhere on the journey.
You're exactly
Right.
right. That's good.
Well, you got. I mean, like I told you last week too. I mean, at this point, weighing yourself is pointless anyway because
It is.
you've stopped losing fat and started building muscle, and the scale's just gonna frustrate you. Throw it away.
Yeah.
Right.
Just start looking in the mirror. You know, try
Yeah,
not to
like
make it a
running.
vanity thing, but look in the mirror.
Yeah, like running, jogging, I'm building muscles in my legs that haven't been there since 2013. So
I mean, look to your right. Look at the dude who's on the.
I know, it's
that's a
crazy.
different dude.
It
it's
is.
crazy. You sent me that picture of January the 3rd when we started the podcast,
Right.
and I showed it to Stacy. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You did-
We got to
you
start
did good.
saving some of this stuff, and I can pull it up as we go because that's. I mean, we'll do it next week. I'll get a picture so we can see it before and after because it's a I mean, it's a huge change. It's a big, and you should be proud of it.
Yeah.
Not too proud.
No,
Yeah, exactly. Gotta keep him humble.
no,
Yeah.
not too proud.
Hey, you gotta stay humble, fatty.
The good thing about the good thing about a guy like me losing weight is I'm ugly. So there is no like vanity part of it
you're
other than
not
wanting to feel better.
You're not ugly.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's not like I'm going to lose 30 pounds and, look like Fregosa.
Well, you'd have to lose a couple of knees to look like a Fregosa. No, I'm picking on
Oh,
you now.
man.
You
He's
got
a
it.
wrestler, dude.
I
You're
know.
watching.
You take me out here in just a minute. Yeah, I'm. I don't know if I'm encouraged or convicted or feeling shame. Like that's stuff we need to be doing.
Well, I think it was like this episode was very, very poignant for me. So for the last 3 to 4 weeks, I've been trying to force myself back into my good habits. I've never been the 3:30 guy, but I have been the 4:30 guy, and I've been the 4:30 guy consistently. And I've been the gym guy consistently, and I've had all those aspects, and I've been the read the Bible my guy consistently, but not all together, and
At the
not
same time,
and
right.
not as the process. Meaning, I'm trying to focus on. We talked about it briefly before we started the show. You and I don't focus on not failing. Focus on the process.
Right.
Don't focus on anything other than I'm just going to put in the work.
Right.
I'm going to make sure I'm going to set these parameters of I'm going to go to bed at 8:30. Obviously Monday nights are out for that, but I'm going to go to bed at a reasonable hour to get up at 4:30 because how I start is how I will.
I wish
finish
I
out
would
the day.
ask him, how that works with his wife, because I know my wife would never get up at 4:30 or 3:30 or 5. She won't even get up at 7:30. But to like our time together is at night. Like from once the kids are kind of settling down, 7:30, 8 o'clock. That's our time together. We have till 10:30. 11 o'clock most nights.
Well, he's pushing 3:30 at when I'm pumping. Mine was 9:30.
But I'm saying even to go to bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock. Golly,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
that's like half my night with my wife.
If you can shut it down, like let's say the kids are going to bed at 7:30,
Right.
that's 2 hours with your wife.
Yeah.
You know?
My kids
see,
will never
I'm-
go to bed at
I'm good
7:30.
because that's Stacy's bedtime is 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Oh, is it?
9 o'clock latest.
That's
I mean,
good.
every once in a while on the weekend she stays up later.
Right.
But Stacy's pretty routine. But I like
Hey, Jody,
Yes.
I'm still here, just hanging out, listening.
God, yes.
Yeah.
Can we-
I thought we took you off there.
Jesus.
Yeah, I guess we just
Making sure you didn't say anything bad about me. No, I'm
I was
just,
gonna
No,
say-
we were talking
I was
about
just
that.
hanging on. I was just hanging on because my publicist always told me to hang on even after the recording's over.
Oh, how funny!
Yeah.
I
But
thought
to answer, to answer
your
y'all's question though, so first and foremost, I always tell people this. Start my video. I always tell people this. Stop thinking. Number one.
There you go.
Yeah.
We always overthink, overanalyze. So lose your mind. Learn to lose your
Right.
mind. And when it comes to my rhythms, they're my rhythms. Like I'm responsible for my results at the end of the day. And I'm always a me versus me guy.
Right.
Going back to like, you know what? I'm focusing on all the gains I make during the day, not the gaps that I have.
Right.
Because we have trained ourselves mentally to think, and I'm a geek about this stuff. Since we were kids, you were always taught like you're doing this wrong or stay away from the fire or whatever, right? You've been taught to see the gaps in your life. Whereas if you would just focus really on those small gains, they produce massive results. As far as like the wife, the intimacy, the connectivity, etc., she goes to bed at the same time I do. We have a rhythm with our kids, and we stay up, we read, we talk, we pray, etc. And then because I work at home and then I have an office too, we have dates during the day, so that's just different for me. Because I also know when I don't sleep is my secret sauce, because I'm up at 3:45. I don't bring technology with me into the room. Just don't do it. We don't have TV. Yeah. We don't have TVs in the room or etc. My phone's in a different room. My stuff's already set out for the next day. My hydration's already in the fridge. And this is something that didn't happen overnight. I mean, goodness gracious, it's a process, like we've been saying.
Yeah.
And it's not perfect all the time, but I also give myself grace and I don't shame myself. And a couple of things, I'm just sitting here listening to you guys, just from a coaching perspective. Listen to how you talk to yourselves. The I tries is just nothing more than a gateway word to I will quit.
Yep.
You go from an I try to an
he's meddling, Ben. He's meddling.
This son of a.
Yeah. So with that being said, I'm just sitting here listening. This is the stuff I geek out on, because greatness resides inside all of us. You have so much power inside of you, and be there with your wife until 10, but at the same time, do what works for you. I'm a 5 a.m. club guy, just because I've got to do a cortisol dump right out the gate, because that's our fear hormone that raises throughout the day. Right. And then as the day goes on, it's called ego depletion, or the law of diminishing intent. I know my low level activities have to be put in the afternoon versus the morning. So those are things that you just start figuring out about yourself, and losing that amount of weight. That's incredible, man. And you're a good looking dude, brother. Like, I mean, you are like, quit calling yourself. You're not.
Yeah,
I know
really, that's me. I'm trying to keep them on keel. Hey, you guys are not good looking.
The Holy Spirit, I didn't mention this the other day, but the Holy Spirit told me one time, Ben, self-deprecation is not humility.
Yeah.
Right.
And God sees that, right? Most of the time it's just me trying to get a laugh.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm bad about judging myself, not meeting an expectation, and what I'm trying to do with this weight loss journey is really just get into, you guys keep talking about the process. In business, in lean methodologies, we talk about process drives behavior.
There you go.
What you're trying to drive is behavior with a process. Right. So in the warehousing that I used to be in, and trucking that I'm now in, you want strict processes and everybody to follow the process, because we don't need any bright ideas.
Right.
Bright ideas gray things up. Now that doesn't mean people don't get ideas and we don't change things, but my point is, this is the process today. Follow this process. Everybody does everything the same.
Right.
You get to do it with your left hand or your right hand. You get to use a blue pen. You get to use a black pen, but the process doesn't change.
Right.
And so that's what I'm in the process of doing in my life, is developing I have never been routined. I have never been disciplined, except when I was in the Air Force, in my life, ever. I do everything differently the next day.
Right. Just a slow build. It's a slow build to that, man. And And it is something that we've talked about before on the podcast, of us trying to be a little more affirming to each other, and a little less, poking and all of the above. And we've been better. Surprisingly, this is not as bad as it's been, because it's a safety net. I learned that in athletics, you need some negative talk to fire up that inner monster, but that doesn't work for all aspects.
personal
Yeah, in a
relationship.
personal relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's great. It was great when I was in wrestling.
That's called trash talk.
Yeah, you trash talk yourself when you want to get
Yeah.
huge in the gym, but maybe tone it down for your self improvement and your
good.
life goals.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, guys, I apologize.
Dude, I'm glad you were listening. Because I had that question, just because I like to get up early, but I do not like to go to bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock. So,
Well, if you got up early and did something, you would like to go to bed at 8:30, 9 o'clock. Because I'm currently doing it, and I used to go to bed 10, 11 o'clock at night. Last night I went to bed at 7:45 because it was my first day of going to work at 8, and I said I'm starting out. I changed my hours at work to back it up an hour because I'm not a 3:45 or 4:30 guy. But by 5 a.m. I'm ready to go. So I started running. I got up. I drank my coffee. I went running at 4:30. Got 4.5 miles in about an hour and 10 minutes. So I'm not blazing. I'm a 15-minute mile right now.
Get some.
But I'm just starting to change my mindset. Like I used to jog, and I'm at a 15-minute mile, and these 4 guys would run by me, and they're runners.
Right.
And I used to be like, man, dude.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, you know what? I'm getting more out of what I'm doing at 214 pounds than they're getting because they're just like they got to run 22 miles to get any more ripped than they are. So I just am trying to get new ways to motivate myself to stick with it.
That's awesome.
Keep doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, we appreciate you jumping on.
Yeah, no kidding.
This is the second time we had you on the show.
I'm glad you're That's awesome.
Last thing I'll leave on the morning piece of it too is like I will not check technology until 7, 8 o'clock. Like it's solitude for me.
That's awesome.
And I mean, at headquarters we have 50 guys, so I'm showing up 4:15. Everybody else musters at 4:45 a.m. and then the process gets started there. And that's my only other thing is like we're cyber zombies. Our world has gotten so distracted.
Yeah,
really
exactly.
And Cole, I got off Facebook. I was on Instagram and Twitter, but never used it other than to watch what people were saying. I got off Facebook at the first of the year and haven't been on it. And now literally day to day, unless I know my wife is posting pics of like the foam party the other night that we have with the grandkids, I don't have no desire to even look at it.
Good for you.
You know what I'm saying? Now
I just use it for business is what
that's what I'm saying.
That's kind of where I'm at
things
now.
you have to use it for, right? If you're in business, you got a ministry, but
ours has got out of hand. All right, brother, take it easy. We are going to close out the show completely here. Here we go. God bless you guys. Y'all have a great night.
You've been listening to the Man Up God's Way podcast. Visit us on Facebook, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and our website at manupgodsway.org.